Many of those who are skeptically inclined tend to scoff at accounts of astral projection, dismissing the experiences as dreams, hallucinations, or outright fabrications. There exists many cases of these out-of-body experiences, however, which cannot be so easily explained away. One of those cases is that of Agneta Uppman. Mrs. Uppman lived with her husband Per and their 4 children in Karlstad, a lovely town on the Klarälven River in the Swedish county of Värmland. As the couple, along with their young daughter, lay in bed in the early hours of an ordinary October morning, Agneta awoke, finding that she was unable to move a muscle. She had experienced the terrifying condition of sleep paralysis off and on over the preceding 14 years, and this time was no different. The immobilized body, the pounding heart, the feeling of suffocation, and the loud buzzing sound in her head. Agneta silently screamed inside her mind, "If I could just escape from this terror." As soon the intense thought ran through her head, she experienced a sudden change. With her powerful yearning for freedom, she had willed herself loose of the stifling confinement in which she had been locked. Feeling as though she was floating, she observed her surroundings, her daughter, eyes closed, peacefully sucking away at her pacifier, her husband laying on the other side of the bed, and her own body, seemingly still fast asleep. Agneta attempted to call out to her husband as she floated near the ceiling, "Per, Per, can you see me?" "I'm flying." Per offered no response. Agneta felt as though she was in a wonderful dream, yet also wide awake at the same time. After a few moments of basking in the wonder of hovering over the bed, she began to feel a bit uneasy. She knew that she had to get back in her body, only she wasn't sure exactly how. Then suddenly, there she was, lying in her side under the covers, reconnected with her physical self. The thought alone had done the trick. Agneta opened her eyes, fully in control of her body again. "Per, did you see me? I was up near the ceiling," Per, sounding amused even in his groggy state, replied. "What? You must have been dreaming." "Yeah, that's probably all it was," she conceded, albeit reluctantly. That October morning in 1980 was Agneta Uppman's first OB, but it would be far from her last. She began to develop her skill in astral projection, each time engaging in more advanced and daring journeys. Agneta discovered that during her quests, she had the ability to transverse solid walls. She could go straight through the side of her house and soar over her neighborhood with ease. With intense concentration, she could transport herself to distant locations. The experiences were intensely vivid, as though she was wide awake. Like most of us, she had had vivid dreams before, where she felt awake, but these experiences were different. During these experiences, she was totally cognizant of her surroundings and having full knowledge that she was Agneta Uppman, resident of Karlstad, mother of 4, school teacher in Swedish and English. Even as Agneta's adventures as a disembodied being increased in frequency and intensity, she doubted herself at times. She had always been a skeptical person when it came to matters of the supernatural, so a sliver of doubt would often creep in, with her wondering if the astral journeys were figments of her imagination or realistic hallucinations. She began to discuss her experiences with friends and relatives, who would often just give her a strange look and tell her she certainly must have been dreaming. One colleague scoffed laughed at the suggestion that this might be a real ability, asking sarcastically if she had also grown wings. Agneta began going through the possibilities, attempting to find a rational explanation as to what had been happening to her. She had never abused drugs or alcohol, so that wasn't the cause. Was it a hormonal imbalance of some sort? Some sort of strange allergic reaction? Was it mental illness? Epilepsy? She decided she must test this ability in order to determine if experiences were indeed real. One night, Agneta set out in her astral state to visit her father, who lived in the city of Gothenburg. She passed through her bedroom wall, closed her eyes, and concentrated on her destination. Agneta suddenly felt as though she was caught up in a powerful whirlwind, which whisked her away. When she opened her eyes, there she was in Gothenburg, about 250 kilometers away from her home. She observed the interior of her father and stepmother's apartment. Agneta thought it was strange that the two were wide awake at the late hour. She observed that the usually very tidy apartment was a complete mess, with wood scraps strewn about and construction supplies littering the floor. Approaching her father, she tried talking to him and reached out and tugged on his plaid necktie, but he paid no notice. The next day, Agneta called her father on the telephone, hoping to confirm her observations of the previous evening. To her disappointment, none of the things she had witnessed had taken place. Some time later, she again took an instantaneous trip to Gothenburg. Again, there were construction scraps and junk all over the apartment. Perhaps this really is all just a figment of my imagination, she thought. Then it happened. A few weeks later, this time in her physical body, Agneta made a visit to her dad's house. New renovations had just begun when she arrived at the apartment, and it was exactly how she had seen it during her travels. The same cans of plaster on the floor, the same scraps, and her father even wore the same plaid necktie which she had attempted to tug on a few weeks before. Seemingly, she had not only the ability to travel through space while out of body, but through time as well. Agneta now had a solid piece of confirmation that she possessed this amazing ability, yet still felt as though she needed a bit more evidence before she totally ruled out being sick or crazy. Her next destination would be the London home of Agneta's twin sister Ingela. As she glided above the English neighborhood, Agneta recognized the area, yet her sister's home was white, when it has previously been another color. Brushing off the slight discrepancy, Agneta effortlessly entered Ingela's home. She found her twin in a guest room on the second floor, crying and obviously very upset over something. Once again, Agneta tried to make contact with her target, but even her identical twin could not sense her presence. A few hours later, Agneta made the long-distance call to Ingela in order to find out if what she had experienced had a basis in reality. Ingela informed her twin that her house had indeed been recently painted white. She also explained how she and her husband had had a terrible argument, and she had gone to the guest room, where she cried herself to sleep. Ingela, who had been previously concerned for Agneta's mental health, was now intrigued. Agneta's skill was no longer a cause for worry, but accepted as reality. Ingela herself had previously experienced dreams that seemed a little too real, but not quite as vivid as the experiences of her sister. With Agneta's encouragement, Ingela learned to focus and was also eventually successful in separating her consciousness from her physical body with full awareness. The sisters were even able to astral project at the same time. and the experience of communing together in spirit form brought the twins closer than they had ever been. The pair later realized what was perhaps the greatest benefit of being out of body, when they were able to reunite with their long-deceased mother. Agneta and Ingela's capacity to escape the limitations of the physical body, while seemingly superhuman, are perhaps not unique. Maybe we all have the ability, but some have more of a talent for the skill. Maybe some of us have had these experiences and simply did not realize that the lucid dream that felt a little too real was, in actuality, a voyage of the soul,